Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today's video is going to be in 4K, and that is because I'm checking out the Walkera Vitus. This is a portable aerial photography drone that is clearly competing with the DJI Mavic. So let's take a look at what you get in the box. It's currently priced at £630, so it undercuts the Mavic. So let's have a look what we've got in the box. So we've got the instructions here, and then we have got the quadcopter itself. So if I just compare it here to the size of the Mavic, you can see there that is a very similar size, just a little bit longer there, but they both do 4K and of course the low resolutions as well. So it has got a fairly hefty smart battery in here. It is 5,200 milliamp. I think it's a 3S. Now they say you should get a 25-minute flight time out of it. However, if you allow for 10% of a safety margin to land, then it's 22 minutes, but we shall check that out a little bit later. So the battery just clips in there, and then this all folds out, so it looks like you have to fold out the back motors first. So let me just do that. One thing I struggle with the Mavic as well. So we have got some landing legs here that fold out as well, so different to the Mavic. And then we have got a little safety clip here for the gimbal as well. So it has got object avoidance. Looks like it's using infrared there, and we've got optical flow underneath and more infrared as well. Looks like we've got a fan under there too, and we have these folding propellers here. Now just looking at the quality, it does seem a little bit more plasticky than the Mavic, but that's expected for it being a little bit cheaper. So let's check out what else we have got in the box. So this looks to be the charger. So it looks like we have another lead that goes in there, and then this opens up here, and it looks like this just clips into the battery underneath there as well. And we have got the usual lighting system, I think. However, it's not turning on as I'm holding it. There we go. So this battery here is fully charged, but it does tell you the battery indication there, which is very similar to DJI. And then we've got here a little DC connector as well, and that is going to be for the controller. So let's take a look here. Very nice controller. It folds out there, and also the antennas fold out. Ooh, really nice gimbals there. I believe this has got a 2,200 milliamp battery built into it, a 2S. We've got a fan on there, and then we have got our gimbal controls here. So that's for tilting the gimbal down there, and then this is for the exposure compensation there as well. Various other buttons here. So we've got manual mode, GPS mode, and then a sports mode, and then return to home on there as well. And we've got a couple of other buttons here as well. I have to check in the manual what those do. But yeah, that charges in the side there. Now, one important thing about this, you can see there's no tethering here. This produces a 5.8 gigahertz Wi-Fi hotspot, so you have to make sure that your phone can support that. So my Google Pixel XL won't pick it up, but my Nexus 5 will, and my iPhone 6 does pick it up as well. So it definitely depends on your mobile device there. And yeah, so we have the password there as well, so it's 120 there as well. So let's just quickly take a look at what else we have got. So this seems to be the charging cable there. So I think, I could be wrong, but is that a US plug there? So I'm going to have to use an adapter for that. And then we've got some Allen keys in here, spare gimbal grommets, which is nice. And what we've got in here, that's a USB 2 micro lead, I can see there. And here we have got some rubber protectors for the landing legs there. That's interesting, isn't it? Anything else? Okay, so yeah, this is a extension to the phone holder. So that clips in there like so, and then you can adjust that for the size of your tablet as well, which is quite nice, but I'm not going to need that because I'm going to be using my phone. Let's have a look what else we have got. So it looks like we have got some spare props as well. How many are in there? So we have got 2 in there. And it says on the side that those are clockwise, and then we have got 2 counterclockwise in there as well, and that is all the stuff that you get. Okay, let's go through some of the specifications. So it is 229mm by 279mm by 113mm. It weighs 890 grams, including the battery, so it's under 1 kilogram. The transmitter, they are calling the Devo F8S, so sticking with the Devo name there. I already talked about the battery size. It is 5200 milliamp and is a 3S. So the camera, it is a Sony CMOS 12 megapixel camera with a field of view of 85 degrees and a aperture of f2.8. and the ISO scope 100 to 12,800. So the photo resolution goes from 4000 by 3000, aka 12 megapixels, and then the video is 3840 by 2160, 8 megapixel, and that is 4K at 30 frames per second. Also does 1080p 60 and 30 as well. Now it doesn't come with a micro SD card. You're going to need a class 10, and it supports up to 64GB card. The picture format is JPEG and not RAW by the looks of it, and then the video format is MP4, and the transmitter has got a 2-cell battery, 2200 milliamp. I already mentioned that. They say that the distance is up to 1.5 kilometers. Now it only says the signal range, it doesn't mention the video range, but I'm going to assume it's the same, but we'll see how good that is on the flight. And then we have just got 2 buttons that I didn't mention on the transmitter. So this one is for taking a photo, and this one is for taking video there as well. Okay, so the app that we are interested in is called Walkera Drone. It is now available on Android and iOS. I think the last model I reviewed was the Walkera Aiobo, and at the time of that video it was only available on iOS, but you can now get it on Android, but you have to change the language. Everything is in Chinese when you open it for some reason, so I think we can tap into the language here and change it to English. By the way, this quadcopter / drone is also compatible with their augmented reality app. I think that was called Walkera Go. I'm not going to cover that in this video because it's a bit of a gimmick. I did cover it when I reviewed the Aiobo, and I will link that in the description, but I'm just interested in its aerial photography features here. And I'm not sure whether I'm going to use the Android app, because if I select the model here, so go to connect there, and then if I go to some of the features, some of them are still in Chinese here. I'll have to see if that is still the case when I connect everything up. But when I just load the iOS app up, that is not the case there. So yeah, it just seems to be that one option. So I'll have to check that out, because I could potentially screen record it if I try the Android version. But if we go into iOS there and then close this, you can see there that I have got all of the different flight options. So gesture shot, active track, and then aerial mode. And then if I just come out of there, is it the back button? No. So then we have got a takeoff and return home. We have got the map function down here as well. So then we have got circle mode and then waypoints, just like the Aiobo had. I keep doing that by accident, going backwards there. And then we have got stuff down here, so the distance in meters and the height and the velocity as well in meters per second, the number of GPS satellites, and the strength of the video signal and also the control signal, the quadcopter's battery, and then if we go into the settings here as well, then we can change the unit and certain map settings, and then we can put geofence on. We can limit the altitude up to 300 meters, but it's going to be 120 here. Will it let me change that? Yeah, so I need to go into there a little bit later and change that. And then I can change the stick mode, which is important to me, so I can fly mode 1, or they're calling that Japanese mode here. And then we've got gimbal options here as well. So you can set it to record to the quadcopter or the phone. Of course, I want the quadcopter. And then we can also adjust the roll here as well if it goes out of whack, and calibrate the gimbal here as well. And then we've got battery information there too. Change the RC feel. And is there anywhere else? So we can update the firmware there as well. So before I fly, I'm going to need to calibrate the compass, and to do that you go into device and then sensors, and you can see there that you can calibrate everything here. So yeah, important to do that before you fly. Well, anyway, let's go back to the main screen here so we can switch between photo mode and video mode here, but I can't do that until it's connected. There, so we can mess around here with the exposure value, the ISO, and also the exposure compensation and the white balance as well, and then we can change the different settings here. So it looks like we can only do JPEG, no RAW. There, change the ratio to 16:9, and then the resolution as well. We would want 12 megapixels. I imagine that's just going to crash though, because I'm not connected to the aircraft. So there we go, setting failed, so yeah, that's fine. Others, what have we got in there? Add anti-flicker and stuff as well. And I don't think it's going to let me change any of the settings for video. But yeah, I imagine that we can switch between 1080, 60, 30, and also 4K as well, and I will confirm that when we go and do the flight. Okay, so I've managed to connect to it with my iPhone. I was able to connect to it with Android, but yeah, some of the features were in Chinese still, like these features up here, like some of the modes that I want to check out. So I would say not quite ready for Android yet, not in my experience anyways, which is a shame. Another thing I have had a problem with as well is the SD card. Now it says in the manual that it will support a 64GB SD card. None of my 64GB SD cards are working. I've put a 32GB SD card in there, and that is working. So it's another issue that I've got, but let's just check out some of the settings whilst I'm here. So video, see the preview size 720p. I can change that to 1080p if I want, but I don't think I'm going to benefit much doing that. We can change the preview rate in megabytes as well. Record size, I'm keeping it at 4K. So yeah, we've got 1080p, 30, 60 and 4K. Record rate 16 megabit. So actually for 4K we probably want 64, don't we? So yeah, that's important. Make sure you change that, otherwise you might get a pixelated 4K. And then here H.264 I'm going to select as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, and will also let me change the exposure. It's actually the ISO value that it changes, I think. We're going to the settings here again, so if I move that there, yeah, it's changing the ISO value. Okay, I have got everything set up. The video is recording, so let's arm it so it's both sticks out like so for a second or so, and then I'm going to lift the throttle up. Now I have set this up to fly mode 1. Okay, the next thing I want to test out is the object avoidance. So we don't really have many objects out here, so I am the only object. So let's fly it into me and see what happens. Oh! Okay, so that had to get very close to me before it recognised there was something there. Too close for my liking. I reckon it would hit the thing before it stopped, which of course doesn't happen with the DJI. Yeah, that's too close for me. So not sure on the object avoidance. I always thought it as a bit of a gimmick anyway, but and if I can display it actually stopping. Let's try getting a bit lower. There we go, look at that. That's full forward there. And it wouldn't get me, so I was actually flying it a bit too high. So yeah, there we go. It is working. It won't let me fly into myself. There we go. So here is some footage taken from the SD card. I'm narrating after the flight has been completed, because when I'm out on the field there, all I can see is the video feed from the phone, which is in 720p, and it just looks fantastic. The picture quality of this camera is really good. I really like the colours. The only thing that I noticed when I got back to the computer is that this gimbal is much more susceptible to knocks compared to the likes of the Mavic, which is also susceptible to knocks, by the way. I managed to get quite a few knocks on the Mavic, which is why I prefer the P4 over the Mavic. I think the footage is more reliable. But when I look at this footage, it definitely was getting more knocks than any of those other models, so the Mi, the Mavic and the P4. That being said, the picture quality is fantastic, but of course I am going to compare it to those other models because that is what it is competing against. Now it does say in the manual not to fly it in strong winds, and it was a 10-mile-per-hour wind here today. However, those other models that I just mentioned, the Mavic and the Mi, those models can fly fine in that wind, so I think that is worth mentioning as well. But you'll see there when the model levels out, yeah, just a bit jittery, I would say, on the gimbal. What do you think? Am I being too harsh on it? These were just my initial impressions. As for how the thing flew, it flew fantastic. The GPS position hold, very good, on par with the Mi and the Mavic, I would say. You'll see here as well as I ascend, another couple of wobbles on the gimbal as well. Another interesting thing that happened with me as well is when I tried some of the autonomous features such as the active track and the orbit mode, the quadcopter will go into a toilet bowl. So I don't know if there is something on this model that when you initiate those automatic modes it messes up the compass, but I calibrated the compass a few times and it didn't seem to make a difference. Yeah, look, it seems to be toilet bowling there. Oh, it's gone into a right crazy one there. That's not good. Let's take it out of GPS mode. It seems to be when I start messing with these other features that it does that. I think this app needs work. The firmware needs work, but fundamentally I think it's a nice model. I think it looks fantastic. I love the idea that someone's trying to take on DJI. Oh, it's going crazy, look. No. If I didn't know what I was doing, that would crash. That wasn't too much of an issue because I don't like to use those auto modes that much, but it is something to take into consideration. It's a really quiet model, and there was no jitters coming from the propellers or anything like that. It was a very smooth flyer. The sport mode worked nicely as well, but again it wasn't very good for the gimbal. It got knocked a lot in the sport mode. You got 10 meters per second in sport mode, I think. So manual mode, that should just take it out of GPS hold, I think. And now we're in manual mode, still altitude hold. This is a nice looking machine, I have to say. Very nice. So let's see how fast it is like that. I imagine the gimbal isn't going to like that. I think, when I look at the gimbal, I think the rubber grommets are too close to the actual model. And I think they're hitting in some cases, in some extreme cases. Okay, what about sport mode? Let's have a see. Sport mode, yeah, it is faster. It's faster, but you're probably not going to get great video footage out of that. Let's have a look at full pelt sports mode. 8 meters per second. Let's try that again. See how fast it is. Yeah, so it tops out at about 10.4 meters per second, I think. So you couldn't really use it for camera purposes or aerial photography purposes. But there you go, that is my review of the Walkera Vitus. Let me know what you think about this model in the comments, and I'm going to be doing more content with it, perhaps comparing it directly with the Mavic. So I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.